Welcome to Cookbook. This is our February 2020 episode, and our guest today is author Nick White. He is author of Sweet and Low and How to Survive a Summer. He's also going to teach us today how to make a sweet potato hash with black beans and kale and all manner of good things. And then we're going to get a chance to sit down and talk about his writing, about his books, and about what's next for Nick White. Welcome to Cookbook. Our guest this month is Nick White, and he is going to teach us how to make his sweet potato hash. So how do we start?
Okay, we're going to cut the oven on and let the skillet start. I'm going to pour a little bit of olive oil into the skillet.
Okay.
As Rachel Ray would say, a little EVOO.
And what do we put in first?
First thing we're going to do, I have chopped some shallots, and we are going to wait and let it get a little hot because I like when they hit the skillet to do the little sizzle.
You live for the sound.
I live for the
sound.
I live for the sound. We get so...
Now, why do you start with the shallots?
I start with the shallots because I like them to go ahead and be cooking and be kind of caramelized, and they will flavor everything else or help flavor everything else, including sweet potatoes and the kale. It just all sort of like starts to meld together.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay.
And
then what?
Gonna
Get this going a little bit?
get this going.
Okay, so when this is, you said this is one of your favorite meals to make.
Mm-hmm.
About how often does this one come into the rotation?
I would say at least 4 to 5 times a month. Like maybe 4 times a month. I really love this because it makes really good leftovers. You can put it in your thing and take it to work.
You could add eggs to it.
You can add, oh my god, eggs is so good.
Sure.
Meat's really good. It's a really good thing if you have some chorizo.
Ooh.
If you like chorizo,
spicy sausage,
get the kind that breaks apart and sort of coats everything. That's a really good addition to a dish like this.
Okay.
I wanted to keep it fairly vegetarian because I wanted to, just in case other,
Sure thing.
yeah, I feel like I cook a lot with meat, and so. All right, so see, it's making that.
It's changing color a little bit and starting to make the sound you were looking for.
It's making that wonderful, wonderful sort of smell. One thing that I forgot to do is we need to make sure that when we add the sweet potatoes, just sprinkle with cumin, because cumin is the make or break.
We've got the cumin right there. We're all set.
Good.
Why is it the make or break?
Because it's just, again, it's like flavor. It's just like, it's so aromatic, the smell. I'm big about smell. It's just sort of like...
So was this one you started doing all the time when you moved to Ohio, or is this one coming from Mississippi?
So Josh and I, we were in a long distance relationship for like 4.5 years, and this was like a good recipe that we both found online, and we started making together via FaceTime. And so it's also, as a beginning cook, it was really easy for me. It was like a nice sort of like starting dish for myself.
So you both learned how to make it at the same time?
Right. He's much more advanced at cooking. Like, I think he likes to put the shallots in later.
Oh.
But I like to start with the shallots because I like them a little burned.
I did know the shallots was a level of difficulty.
Yeah. I like the. I think we might be ready to do the.
So the diced up sweet potatoes are next.
Diced up sweet potatoes, and I lightly salted them.
Sure.
Before. Ooh, a little splash. Nice sizzle. What you want to do is make sure that you spread out the sweet potatoes evenly. It's going to be a little difficult. It's always difficult when you have small pieces like that, but just try to make sure that each piece is touching some form of the hot skillet. It's kind of hard, but yeah. And we're just going to constantly.
Now you said you like these to get a little blacker than Josh does.
I do. I like it a little burned. I like the roastiness of it.
Okay.
It also makes it sweeter.
Okay.
Feels a little bit more candied, I suppose.
Okay.
It's like a big contention in our house how much to roast for vegetables.
All right.
Like carrots are a fun thing to roast as well.
Sure.
And make those I like those like roasted within an inch of their life because they get like super sweet.
Right.
And then drizzle honey on them, and that's like
So why honey instead of brown sugar for that?
That was just a recipe I found, and it's probably messier than brown sugar by all means. But yeah. Yeah, I'm just gonna set this on top of it a little and see.
Nice.
sort of trap some of that steam so it can like cook from both sides.
Sure. The smell's already starting.
Oh, it's
It's
really
pretty
good.
great.
Really good.
So you were saying chorizo, egg, maybe chicken breast?
Chicken breast would be
Okay.
good. Yeah, it's also like a good side dish, so you could like roast the
Sure.
chicken and have this on the side.
Now, can you roast a chicken?
Can I?
Can you?
I can roast chicken legs. I can do drumsticks. That's
Alright.
like a big thing. I put another recipe that I'm really good at is ginger chicken. So,
Okay. Yeah, that's a staple, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we normally do drumsticks. Josh really likes them over breast. So
Okay.
we are a drumstick family.
Fair enough. All right, so we get these to start getting a little browner and done. The smell of the food has brought the dogs. You can't
Yes.
see the dogs, but
Yes, it's so good.
we're very popular right now.
And you can sort of see the thicker because the orange is getting more vibrant, right?
Sure.
It's kind of like, yeah, we want to keep them. Oh yeah, they're already getting brown. So
Nice.
we're gonna, your pan is a lot better than mine because it's already like. I'm just gonna go around and flip. Add a little bit more olive oil if you would hold that.
Yes, sir.
You said when Hanif was here, he made fruit salad.
He made fruit salad.
That's great.
There it is.
You know, he just wrote an essay about making risotto. Did you see
That's
that?
been his thing for about the
Yeah.
last year, yeah. It's been, we've done dessert nachos.
Ooh.
We did Maggie's grandmother's molasses cookies,
Oh my god, amazing.
which were pretty delicious. I'm still waiting for the person to go, hey, I'd love to come do the interview. Can I bring a bag of chips? To which nobody knows yet. I will absolutely say yes to. It's been fun.
I should like doing something while you ask me questions, so it's not like it sort of makes me more vulnerable. I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad it's the risotto. That would be a
Yeah.
much longer interview. Then.
Oh my god, it would.
I used to make these really epic paellas.
Oh.
The whole 6-hour-long process, we were doing all the veggies and rices and mixing everything together at the end.
Okay, it's getting a little brown.
Okay.
I'm gonna sprinkle some cumin.
Okay.
This is gonna make it smell too. Yeah, I agree. I agree with Mia. Yes.
The dog says yes. Oh, it already smells different.
I know, right?
That's great.
I like this because it's all about different levels. You
Sure.
start, the dish just sort of keeps changing and evolving as you keep adding stuff. Okay. I'm just amazed at how good this pan
It's
is.
a good pan.
It's a good pan.
This is one of the best parts of my marriage. Is that all of a sudden there are great pans and cooking things.
Okay. I'm gonna let this cook just a little bit more because I want it to get good and tender for when we
Sure.
add the
Should we add the lid again?
kale.
The lid.
Oh yeah,
Should
the
we add
lid.
the-
Sorry, yeah. Cut that one more time.
Okay, so if Josh is doing this, how's he doing it different?
So
Just as options.
he is okay. So we have the type of pan where you can like lift it and like
Oh, wow.
and do like that.
Sure.
He is a master at that. My partner, love him to death. He has a great butt. And one of the things that I love to watch is when he's flipping it, he does a little butt twirl. And how he does it. When I do it, I risk scalding my face.
Okay.
But when he's sort of very.
Do you do too much hip?
I do
You
too much hip.
Too much hip.
Too much
And then-
hip.
okay.
Can't do it. Can't do it. Just you got to know your limits.
Absolutely. Now I gotta ask, does he wear the apron?
No, we have no aprons in our
Okay.
house. That's why I'm
So unfettered view of the butt.
unfettered view of his, and he wears skinny jeans.
Oh, okay then.
Honey,
Okay. All right.
a lot of love in our house. All right, I'm gonna add the kale.
Okay. Are we gonna want more olive oil?
Yeah,
on
we're
top
gonna
of that?
want more olive oil.
Okay.
I'm gonna set this down.
Sure.
And this kale is just such a strong, such a tough, oops, that fell down.
That's okay.
About that.
The kale is down. Okay.
Hearty, leaf.
Definitely.
I didn't really eat kale until I started
Well, and it's got a bigger taste.
dating Josh, and it's a big staple. But you're gonna want it to wilt. If you ever make a salad with kale, which you probably know, but one of the things to do if kale is not really something you like is to try it in a salad when it's raw and it hasn't been cooked. It's just to massage it and break it.
Really?
And olive oil, keep massaging it and have it like wilt down, break down that fiber. It makes it a lot more tender and a lot.
I'm a big fan of. We are not too far from Harvest Pizza, and they've got a kale Caesar salad that is delicious.
Yeah. We at North Star they do a kale pizza.
Yes.
With crispy fried kale on top and honey. I think
That's really. There was really one within. We used to live within walking distance of the one. That's all right. We're gonna get the door. We'll crack it. And I'm gonna go wave the alarm here.
Too hot to trot, honey.
Wow.
It's not the first time I've let off a spiral alarm. Let me tell you.
You know what? When we had the poet T.A. Noonan was doing the dessert nachos, I think she accidentally set off the alarm as well. So it could be a southern thing.
Oh, it could be.
It could be.
Okay, so one of the things is to like make sure that we mix this really good. So that the so that's really mixed. And you can already see the kale is shrinking. And it's just so good when you wilt it like this.
So what other things do you ask Josh to make that are really just more foreplay than actual cooking? Is there like when he gets the pan going?
Okay, so oops, doggy's gonna hit the camera. He makes a really good chocolate torte.
Okay.
There's actually this funny story. When I was in Nebraska finishing my PhD, he made it because he came to visit me for Thanksgiving, and that's what we were bringing. And I did not have a mallet. We needed a mallet to do something with the chocolate. I can't remember. And so he got out my iron, and he was using the iron with the chocolate to make this beautiful, delicious chocolate torte. The man is the MacGyver of the kitchen.
That's impressive. Well, and
being a southern
MacGyver,
boy,
I get the seduction then.
Yeah,
sure.
Being the MacGyver and also being a southern boy, away my hardest or my stomach.
Well, and it's not just the cooking. It sounds like there's a dance to it.
Yes. Okay, so you can see it's nice and wilted. I'm going to add the beans now.
Okay. Turn on.
Yeah. And actually, I think we just need one can of beans. I don't think we need the other.
Okay. This is definitely going to be less costly than when I broke the mixer.
And add a little bit more olive oil.
All right.
We can probably cut the heat down just a little.
Okay.
If we wanted.
All right.
This is good. Maybe could I get would you pass me the salt?
Salt. Yes, sir.
Keep it.
That smells really great.
Yeah, it's so good. Okay, you know what? I think it's close to being ready.
Okay. Again, all the sounds. All right.
All right, this is great. Okay.
Well, Nick's cooking has not only brought all the dogs to the yard, it's brought Thomas, it's brought... we're getting a crowd. So we're going to let this finish cooking. When it's done, we'll scoop it up. We'll make sure the alarm stops. And then we'll get a chance to sit down and talk about writing. The sweet potato hash is beautiful. We've added the avocado, diced avocado, and sour cream to it. And we are going to enjoy some of it soon. But before we do, I wanted to get a chance to talk to you about these books that I spent the last few weeks rereading. As the moments I've been quiet and thought about it over and over again, my favorite thing, and it happens both in the stories and in the novel, is that you give us such a state of things, and it's not the protagonist's decisions always seems almost delivered by the state of dress, the state of the car, the state of the cabin in the woods, the state of all these things that you've evoked in such a way that when they make decisions that are difficult or dangerous or necessary despite their own personhood, you go, well, I see why you made that decision, because all of the things you've talked about and evoked have made that decision apparent from, you can sort of predict what they might do.
Oh, that's so nice.
Well, it's, and this is coming from a poet's angle, the images you've given us in terms of the appearance of the people, the cars they ride in, the rooms they walk into, make their decisions feel natural. And these are unnatural decisions sometimes that get made. The people choosing the things that are not good for them. Going back to Mississippi and going back to the camp, the place that, this protagonist who has spent his time studying old movies and thinking of things in sort of like a Douglas Sirk sort of mind frame, when in actuality, much like the movie in it, it's a horror mind frame. It's people that were tortured and sometimes tortured to death. But him making that decision seemed natural because of the shower he takes in the hotel and the state of his dress after that, how the car breaks down, how his interactions break down. How, when you're planning to write something like that, is that something that you're very aware of, or is that more of a natural as you're thinking through the landscape that he's in and it develops that way?
I think it is something that I find through revision.
Okay.
It is so hard for me to hold a whole. When I was working on the novel, it was so hard for me to hold the whole book in my head at one time.
Sure.
Writing short stories, I feel like I can work on them for a little bit, and then when I'm doing something else around the house, when I'm cooking or when I'm washing clothes or going to the gym, I can think about that story. I can still it's still sort of like percolating back there in the back of my brain. With a novel, I can only hold about 30 pages of story in my head at a time, and that's on a good day. And whether or not I'm aware of it at the time, anything I change within those is like a tapestry and pulling on a thread. It changes things before and after. And so really, I discover those moments, I discover those decisions and the echoes that those decisions make before and after. When that character makes them, I discover it after that first big ugly draft. When I go back in and I'm writing, rewriting, and writing and rewriting. I am a very messy writer. I'm a very, I try to have some bones of an organization just to sort of like lie to myself and have something to write towards.
Sure.
But the novel really did not start taking any formative shape until I had that first ugly draft out. And it took me, actually, I tell my grad students this as a way to sort of make them feel better about their own processes, because I think like we all have different processes about getting us to the page. But I got about 55,000 words into the novel before I figured out what it was about.
Okay.
I like got them to the camp, I was like, oh, this is the novel. And about 30,000 of those words had to go away and get replaced by something else. And that was pretty hard to do.
Yeah.
Getting rid of that many words. But I tell myself, I don't know if this is true or not, but it's something I believed, so it helps me like keep going back to the page.
Sure.
I needed those 30,000 words that never made it to like get to all the other words that did. I needed to like write through something. Yeah. I've been very much, since writing these books and writing on this new project I'm working on, in addition to keep writing short stories, I'm very much more invested in process than I've ever been as a writer.
Sure. One of my favorite things in How to Survive a Summer was the way that his language changed, and you could almost feel him, the way he would speak differently in his mouth almost. Like you could, when he was sort of on tiptoes and anxiety with the movie coming out and all those things, he was almost spitting words at people, and he was direct and angry, and you could feel it not doing much to work past the teeth. Just his language was direct and a little bit pointed. And as he went back, and the device that you have in the book is he's going back on a trip, and you're also taking him back into the past. You can almost see his language changes, and he's talking out of the sides of his mouth a little bit. He's holding the words on as he's figuring things out. Because as he's a younger man, and trying to figure out exactly what it is to be, a preacher's son and be gay in a town that doesn't have a lot of gay people in it.
Invisible gay people in it.
Yeah, absolutely. But you can see he's really sort of holding on to all those things that he wants to say in his cheeks, and he starts to talk a little bit differently. And some of it's a lack of awareness, and some of it's the hiding, trying to keep some of those words tucked back. But I started to read out loud some of the dialogue just because I got real interested. I mean, my process is always much more of an image-driven sort of thing. I don't think if I tried to write a novel I could do dialogue very well, and I'm always very fascinated by people that do things that I can't pull off. It's like trying to read Danielle Pafunda or Asse Berg or one of these poets that does things with language, things I just can't do. And the way that you had his dialogue and language change, that was one of the things I started to read some of it out loud, and I would tuck some of it back in my cheek as opposed to keeping it at the front of the teeth, and it was fascinating.
So I think part of that has to do with the fact that from my own experience of, I know I have a southern accent a little right now, but like when I go back home to Mississippi and I'm around my family and around that environment, it really comes out. When I'm reading the book out loud, when I'm doing a reading, the accent really comes out. It's not something that's intentional. It's something that's like born in me that I can't really control or know how that switch is flipped. But it is something that's very real, because when I go back home and I'm with my family for a couple days and I call my partner Josh and I'm talking to him, he's like, my God, it sounds like I'm listening to an episode of Hee Haw. It takes you 30 minutes to say the word fist. Like, what's wrong with you?
Now, I'm only an hour from where I grew up, but when I'm here, I'm in Columbus, Ohio. When I'm home, I'm from Mount Vernon, Ohio.
Right.
The O becomes an A, and all of that, and it happens. But you
code switch.
Yeah, a little bit. And that was one of my favorite things about the book, not just the ending, which is. I'm so impressed you found what is, for the most part, a hopeful ending from such a book that carried tragedy with it on four wheels all the way down back to Mississippi. But the things you were able to do with dialogue was just it blew
that's
me
so
away.
nice. Thank you so much.
How is your strategy different? You said you can carry the short stories much different. How does the process change? Now, are you always working on like a larger piece of fiction and then you'll knock out the short stories like when the ideas come to you?
Yeah, that's how it's tend to be. I've been working on this novel for like over a year, and I just sort of feel like I'm at a point where I'm spinning my wheels, and so I just actually earlier this week started on a new short story just because an idea came to me.
Sure.
And so I've been like working on that. I don't know. I think there's something about writing a short story and finishing it is such like an uplift for me.
Sure.
It's like, oh, I can still do, oh, I've completed one thing, you know. A novel is so much of a leap of faith when I'm writing it. It's like, okay, I'm working on this with the full intention that I could just hit a wall or it's just going to fail, you know, but I'm just going to keep going and hoping that this is going to work. I think that goes back to like my focus now. I'm focusing a lot more on, instead of like the product of the books or the product of the story, I'm focusing more kind of on the process. And that's like the thing that is keeping me sane, I think. Yeah.
I've ended up, because I'll do some of these really long sequences where there'll be somewhere between 81, I think the longest one I did was Trump is a Fire Without Light, which ended up becoming A Fire Without Light book, and it started as 702 poems. I was a little upset.
That's a lot. How many pages was that?
Once we edited it down and took some of the poems out, it ended up being, about a 120-page book.
Whoa.
But what I'll do is I do mapping. And so I'll go ahead and map the arc and the theme and the images that I want to use as pivot points, as you talked about in the short story, like trying to find that point. And then I figure out how to get them to roll and tuck and go back, and I'll map it all out theme-wise with these symbols that I've come up with before I ever try to get, because there's sometimes, especially if you're doing long poems and you're doing like a 12-poem arc on something, sometimes you want it to run, sometimes you want it to come back and call back the theme, and sometimes you're trying to do different things. And so I'll take these 6-month periods where I'll try to do these really long, like I did 3 humanist sequences, a violent sound in almost every place, all the birds are leaving, and now the other one just left me, and put them in one book called Many Full Hands Applauding Inelegantly. So I'll take like a 6-month project and try all these things, and try like the big thing, and try to experiment, and then I come back and I do 24 of like the Emily Ath poems that are how I sound in my most traditional poet voice. This is what comes naturally to me. That thing they're always like pushing you towards in grad school. And then you come back and you try like the experimental long thing to see where you can push things form-wise and develop themes. And yeah.
What interface do you use when you're writing these poems?
Well, I type out, I do the documents, but I keep a yellow legal pad of the mapping. And as I find myself falling into different repeated word traps, I start to cut out words I'm not allowed to use anymore. And then figuring out which ones are strategic so I can use them as the pivot point and bring back the theme and bring back the one that I think I had the most success with, that just got picked up as a book, was A Night So Beautiful We Had to Burn Down the Senator's House, which starts as, someone's partner dies and they have a party in remembrance, and they end up having such a crazy night that they go back and burn down.
This sounds like a story.
Yeah, it's the first time I try to incorporate more narrative than theme. And to not try to encourage people to do too much arson, they changed the title to Burning It Down. But trying those new things and trying narrative and trying different things. And it sounds like it's the same sort of difference for you, whether or not you're doing the novels or the short stories. It sounds like maybe you're most comfortable doing the short stories?
I go back and forth.
Okay.
I think I get frustrated with one, and then I move on to the other, and the grass is always greener, and then I'm sort of in love with the short story for a while until I get frustrated, and I go back to the novel. Because much as I love the short story, sometimes I can feel very hemmed in if I don't have the story tightly plotted. It's like, if it's over 30 pages, it's pretty much going to be unpublishable. If it's over 25 pages, it's probably going to be unpublishable. And so, in certain places. And so, with the novel, I can just be expansive, which is both a gift and a curse.
Keep it messy, like you said.
Yeah, keep it messy. And so, it's just, it fluctuates. It really does.
And if you're ever frustrated with both of them, you can ask Josh to make the sweet potato hash.
I can ask Josh to make the sweet potato.
Yes. With the skinny jeans.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And then the world is just a good place. And
my muse.
Whether you're writing or not.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what is the novel that you're writing now?
The novel I'm working on right now is... it has a foot... So both of these books are pretty much literary realism for the most part. So I still have a foot in the book being Southern and queer, but I'm also stepping out, and there's going to be like some supernatural elements to it. I've been doing a lot of research with the occult and stuff like that, devil worship, that kind of thing. Basically, it stemmed from my fascination with reading the Book of Revelation and realizing there's not enough gay characters, and so I'm like,
well, not openly yet.
Openly, yeah. So I'm really sort of taking that on, and
it's a lot of horses and swords.
Yeah. And so a lot of blood.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm working with that right now. Sure. We'll see how it goes. It's also sort of it's not really an apocalyptic novel, but it does, like, one of the main characters could or could not be the Antichrist.
Okay.
And him trying to, like, deal with the fact that that might be something he was just, like, born in. Because I sort of find the figure of the Antichrist to be very interesting in terms of this idea of someone who is born to bring about the end of the world, but not really understanding or having sort of any say in it.
Okay.
And so my Antichrist figure is this loner queer guy who wants to just like live out in the woods and just screw the world. It can, like, they're doing a fine enough job ending on their own. I just want to, like, live out in the woods in my Meemaw's house and not be, like, bothered by anyone. Right. And the story begins when these three women from this commune in East Tennessee come and knock on his door. Okay. And tell him he needs to leave. And that's like the start of the story.
You never want to be the one that gets the devil going. I got you.
Yeah.
No, I actually just blurbed a book. There's a poet and fictioneer named Nicole Oquendo, and she did a little chapbook called "The Antichrist and I." And it's about, like, a very simple, though slightly bloody, relationship and marriage to the devil. And it's like a 30-page, like, their relationship before the world ends. It's really cool. It's pretty great.
So there's this story that I just read. I forget the author, but it's called "My Date with Satan."
Okay.
And so It's like this woman goes on a first date with the devil in New York, and they go to an art museum. And so. I
feel like the devil would be insufferable at an art
totally.
museum.
Oh my god. Yeah. Oh my god. Because artists are all in hell, and so he's like,
Or like a good place, they talk about all the philosophers. I don't know, that guy's in a bad place. I don't. Well, that sounds like that's going to be a challenge, but it sounds fun.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of fun. I'm keeping everything because it's like all these big cosmological questions, and the challenge for a book like that is, like, how do you write something where it doesn't turn out to be like a treatise on, like, religion?
Sure.
So I have to very much keep it rooted in character, Right. And so it's
just like, because he happens to be the devil.
Or he may be in my world, the devil and the Antichrist I'm sort of taking the revelation at its word. They're sort of separate. Antichrist is the son of the devil. And so he's never met his dad. His dad might not be. His dad's sort of like a deadbeat. Who is this devil guy? He's never talked to him before. So, like, he's like, he's just going to hang out with his Meemaw in the woods and, like, live his life, watch his direct TV, and Wheel of Fortune, and, like,
There were a couple pretty funny moments on the show Supernatural. When, like, the devil...
I need to watch that.
He did, like, 17 seasons or whatever. It's going to take you a little bit. But the devil essentially just gets bored with people. Mm-hmm. He's like, goes back to torturing just because he's, like, bored with the way we live our lives.
Well, I think that's also, like, a question I'm sort of interested in the book, and that I've always been interested in growing up in the Baptist church. Mm-hmm. The idea of, and again, not to get too cosmological, but, like, the idea of immortality is very scary to me. Absolutely. Like, the idea that, like, my consciousness doesn't ever end. Or that, like, the ego doesn't ever end, and I'm still going to have this ego in perpetuity. Like, that's terrifying to me. Yeah. Like, I much prefer the idea that at some point there is this ending. And because I think the ending, to go back to, like, Wallace Stevens' Sunday Morning, death is another beauty, right? I feel like death is, like, a very important...
well, then how does that interact if you are the Antichrist?
Right.
How do you handle that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's fascinating. Well, thank you for coming, and thank you for making the delicious food and for writing these 2 books that I got to spend even more time with.
Thank you for reading. Thank you for your questions.
Absolutely. So in terms of Sundress, we've got the Best in the Net anthology that's going to be coming out before AWP. Are you going to be at AWP?
I'm skipping out this year.
I'm waiting for Kansas City. It's going to be closer.
Yeah, oh my God, I cannot wait for Kansas City.
Better food.
Favorite museum ever is in Kansas City, the Nelson Atkins Museum.
Oh, okay.
It's so good. They have Caravaggio's John the Baptist. It's beautiful painting. Love that museum. If you're ever in Kansas City, eat the barbecue, then go to Nelson Atkins.
Well, Nick and I will see you at AWP in Kansas City, not this year. But Sundress will be at AWP in San Antonio. And before then, we'll have the Best of the Net anthology out. Thank you for coming to CookBook.